Good morning. Today is Tuesday the 26th, and we're going to start with the daily reflection on the New Testament. Then went this saying abroad among the brethren, that disciple should not die. Yet Jesus said not unto him, He shall not die, but if I will that he tarry till I come, what is that to thee? John chapter 21, verse 23. When Peter learned of his future martyrdom, he desired to know what awaited his fellow apostle John the Beloved. Jesus had said earlier, There be some standing there which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. The answer Jesus gave was that John would tarry in the flesh until Jesus returned in glory. John and the three Nephite disciples were translated, meaning they underwent a change in their bodies so they would not die. When the Lord returns, they will be changed in the twinkling of an eye from mortality to immortality, and thus they shall never taste of death. Okay, so today is Galatians chapter 2, and Paul's recounting his going to Jerusalem. Paul goes to Jerusalem. He contends for the true gospel. Salvation comes through Christ. This one was a little bit more difficult to understand, just because he said things like, but of these who seemed to be somewhat, whatsoever they were, it maketh no matter to me. God accepteth no man's person. For they who seemed to be somewhat in conference added nothing to me. Anyways, the verse I chose for my personal statement is verse 16. Knowing that a man is not justified by the works of the law, but by faith in Jesus Christ, even we have believed in Jesus Christ, that we might be justified by the faith of Christ, and not by the works of the law, for by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. And I just wrote, I'm not justified by the law, but by faith in Jesus Christ. Faith leads to works. Let's get into the verse by verse. Alex is asleep right over there. So if I'm quiet, it's because I don't want to wake him up. He came down here at 4:30 and didn't go back to sleep for like an hour. So I'm trying not to wake him up, but let's do chapter 2. For verses 1 through 2, Paul's next trip to Jerusalem was 14 years later. He went seeking official sanction for the work that he, Barnabas, Titus, and others were engaged in. Verses 7 through 8, labels commonly used in the early church were they of the circumcision, meaning Jews, and they of the uncircumcision, meaning Gentiles. Peter directed this division of labor and division of responsibility among the apostles. Verse 9, the leaders of the church extended the full hand of fellowship to the missionaries and renewed their commission to continue taking the gospel to the Gentiles, while they themselves, the leaders, continue working with the Jews. It is possible that this visit, or the previous one, gave Peter the opportunity to ordain Paul to the apostleship. For verses 11 through 14, a controversy arose between Paul and Peter over basic matters of church policy. Several serious disagreements appear among early church leaders in the book of Acts and in Galatians, Paul versus Barnabas and Paul versus Peter. The men involved in these conflicts were strong, faithful men. Even great leaders can and do disagree. Yet they were faithful, and we revere them. Apostles, prophets, being mortal and subject to like passions as other men, have prejudices which sometimes are reflected in ministerial assignments and decisions. But the marvel is not the isolated disagreements on details, but the near universal unity on basic principles, not the occasional personality conflicts. But the common acceptance for the good of the work of the faults of others. It is not the conflict between Paul and Barnabas which concern us, but the fact that they, being even as we are, rose after to spiritual heights where they saw visions, received revelations, and made their callings and elections true. The fact of their disagreement thus bearing witness that we in our weaknesses can also press forward to that unity and perfection which shall assure us of salvation. And that's from Bruce R. McConkie, of course. There's another one. Jeez Louise, there's so much here for chapter 2. Goodness, I'm not going to read it all. I'm going to skip to verses 16 through 19 and read a little bit of that one. Paul, who had, of course, been an ardent disciple of the Mosaic laws and Judaic traditions, now put down the law of Moses, not because it was bad, but because it was not enough. The law in Paul's day meant the Torah, the books of Genesis through Deuteronomy, plus rabbinical ritualism and oral traditions. The Talmud was compiled later in many, many volumes containing thousands of rules and regulations. Paul had been liberated from all of that, and he wanted to be sure that no one was required to observe the old law. It was not necessary for salvation. In fact, to adhere to the law of Moses after Jesus Christ had established the gospel was spiritually destructive, especially after approximately 1,200 years of Israelite history and apostasy, during which many parts of the law were developed. As Paul explains in verse 18, if I try to build or to go back to what I dismantled because I knew it wasn't right, then I am a sinner. Justification, or being accounted righteous, comes through faith in Jesus Christ, and though justification comes only through Jesus Christ, salvation also involves works. Not the works of the old law, but the works of the gospel of Jesus Christ, as Paul wrote. The true way included both faith and faithfulness. The Lord's instructions for salvation are simple and clear. If ye love me, keep my commandments. And then it goes on for another page, but we're not going to read that. Okay. I don't have thoughts on that. Okay, I will leave you now with a prayer from a diary of prayer. It is the 26th, and this comes from the Liturgy of Malabar. Let thy mercy be upon us, O Lord. Cleanse our defilement, sanctify our lips, and let the voices of our foolishness mingle with the praises of seraphim and archangels. Glorify thy love, for herein thou hast associated mortal man with spirits. With these heavenly hosts, then, we, thy poor, weak, and useless servants, praise thee, my Lord, because of thy great mercy towards us, for which we cannot render thee due thanks. Goodness. 4 days left. 4 days left in September. That also means we've got, well, including today, 4 days until conference. All right. I haven't slept in 4 days. So I'm going to go now and go get some breakfast and center myself before work. All right. That was Galatians chapter 2, and we do chapter 3 tomorrow. We will see you then.